Good evening. My name is Kanoy Pereira, and I will be your host for today's segment of Face to Face. Today, my guest and I will be talking about the black snake. The black snake is a prophecy that was passed from generation to generation, from a grandfather to a grandson. The grandson is the current chairman of Standing Rock. The black snake was prophesied to poison our plants, our trees, and most importantly, our water. Who knew in our lifetime that the black snake would be the Dakota Access Pipeline? Today I have with me Professor Don Marsh. I would like to start out by having Dr. Don Marsh explain the issue of Standing Rock right now. Would you be able to explain what's going on at Standing Rock right now, Professor Marsh, and kind of the history behind the issue?
Sure, absolutely. Basically what's happening is that a private corporation petitioned and did paperwork to build a pipeline across the Midwest in the United States. And the pipeline goes through an area that crosses over historically significant lands for the Standing Rock Sioux. And the lands were at one time in part of a treaty that was made with the United States, but has been since broken with the United States, and now actually runs just north of the reservation. So the issue is that when the pipeline is put in there and goes underneath the Missouri River, where the Cannonball and the Missouri River come together, is that the issue is one that there will be possible accidents from the pipeline that would cause poisoning of the water. The other issue is that there's historically significant and sacred lands that are being dug up, interfered with through the construction of the pipeline. And so the question is, historically the question is, who has the rights in this situation? And basically it goes very far back into a very complicated history. But the idea is that the federal government recognizes the sovereignty of Indian reservations and federally recognized nations. And within that recognition is also the idea of there's particular lands that belong to them, that they govern themselves. But the reality is that they never do actually own the land in the sense of private individuals own land. What it is it's held in trust with the United States government. Now that issue, the idea of trust land, goes back even further, and it goes back to the 15th and 16th century with the doctrine of discovery. And in this doctrine, it was assumed that Western Europeans were superior to indigenous people in the Americas. And so because of that claim of superior civilization, then they had the right to determine what was best for indigenous people, because according to that idea of the 15th century, that they weren't competent to take care of themselves. Amazingly, this very basic ideology strings all the way through to the present and is still a part of the basic thinking of why the federal government oversees Indian trust lands. So the federal government basically held the utmost responsibility for protecting those lands and looking out for the welfare of the Standing Rock Sioux. But as often is the case, they didn't do that. And the paperwork that they filed was run through very quickly. Standing Rock Sioux were not giving enough time to investigate and study enough what the impact of it would be. And there's also the withholding of significant information. So the federal government basically was favoring the gas company in the process of this, and they were overlooking the sovereign rights of the Standing Rock Sioux.
I see. So they were not involved in the process?
Not enough. They were involved a bit, but not entirely enough.
Okay, I see. And you said that this has happened, throughout history before, so this is not anything new.
No, I mean, you can see it historically, whether you're talking about how the United States in the 19th century would force the removal of Indian nations, even here from the state of Indiana, for the claims of the necessity of having rights to the territory and the land to be developed according to a Western way of thinking. And it goes all the way up to the 21st century, whether you're talking about issues having to do with timber rights or water rights or mineral rights. It all has to do with Indian reservation lands. Ultimately, the U.S. government, the federal government, has the final say. But within that, they have an obligation, right, to the Native American nations to inform them and take in their opinion. One of the things that is definitely going to happen out of this particular issue now is that process is going to be more closely examined, and hopefully there will be better legislation that's going to clarify the process, because too many bureaucracies were involved and it wasn't followed through in the kind of detail it should have been followed through on.
I see, and the people were not involved.
No, not enough,
Yeah.
not enough.
I see, okay. Thank you so much. And I wanted to move to our next guest. Janelle, if you'd like to introduce yourself and your clans.
Yat she Janelle Cronin Nisha, Nas Ejatachini Nisha, Belagana Bashichin, Titsitni Dashiche, Algonquinini Dashanella. Hello, my name is Janelle Cronin. I am a member of the Navajo Nation from Gallup, New Mexico. I'm a graduate student here at Purdue. I am also a daughter of Indian country as well as a water protector of North Dakota. So I was fortunate enough to have traveled to North Dakota twice already. The first time in August, what prompted me to act was I read a story that the government had shut down the water supply within the camps. And it was that day that I decided enough was enough. I packed up my car. I traveled to North Dakota. We delivered as many donations as we could. Being there in August, it was very much the beginning of a movement. We were seeing young boys learning how to be men still, staying up all night guarding the entire camp. We were seeing young girls learning how to work in the kitchen, feeding people 3 times a day, learning how to lead like women. It was in August where the road 1806, which is the road that currently has the road, police blocks on there, it was still open. We were able to march north on that road to the actual construction site. We were able to pray there, sing there, right there where the earth had been dug up. But since then, in the 2 months since my second trip, things escalated. Now it's dogs, mace, more police officers, intimidation, fear. And that's what prompted my second trip to North Dakota. I was tired of seeing my elders, the children, our women, being attacked by these police officers. The chief of Standing Rock had given a call of action globally, inviting everyone, native, non-native, from every tribe, from every nation across the earth, to come join in this fight. And they issued another call of warning in October saying, we need young, able people, those who call themselves water protectors, to return. So that's why I returned to Standing Rock a second time. And it was interesting seeing how much the camp grew from August to October. In August, it was about 3,000 to 4,000 people. But in October, it was around 5,000 to 6,000 people. The second time, I had a purpose. I was less shocked of the situation. We brought toys to hand out to the children. We brought food to give to the elders that worked in the kitchen, feeding people all day. We walked the entire camp, which is probably 2 to 4 miles. And we stopped. We helped people. We helped set up tents, chop wood. One evening, I had the honor and privilege of getting to visit the Two-Spirited Camp, which is also how we refer to the LGBTQ community. We came across their camp and we sat by their fire. And I was just sitting there looking at everybody, seeing native and non-native faces, seeing uncertainty. And so I asked the elder within their camp and I said, may I address you guys, please? I have a message for you. So he said, yeah, he gave me the floor. I stood up, I introduced myself in my language like I did. I looked at everyone around the fire and I said, you are honored people. In the Navajo way, you are honored because you have a foot in both the male and female world. There are certain songs, ceremonies that are only specifically for you. If a child is orphaned, you become the new parents to them because you can be both mother and father. And that was my message. It was very short, very brief, but I had people cry and come up to me and give me a hug. And they were saying, well, we weren't sure of where we belonged in this community. We know we're here for a purpose, but we're trying to find it ourselves. While I was there, I was also blessed to be a part of a sacred ceremony. We are standing on Lakota, Dakota, and Nakota land, the Horse Nation. And they brought the entire camp together, thousands of people. And they said, we need to do the ceremony. We are seeing fear. We were having issues of PTSD, and that should not be happening here on a sacred ground with your community. So they gathered us, thousands of people in a circle. They had a fire pit, and they asked a drum group to come and sing. They kept space around this group, and that's where they asked us to start forming a circle. They said, please put your children and your elders on the inside of the circle. Then you young women stand around them, followed by you men. And the reason they had to stand in this way is because as a circle, we're united. We are one nation. They were reminding us that together, in numbers, we are strong. That it doesn't matter our tribal affiliation, our indigenous background. While we are standing there at Standing Rock, we are one nation, fighting for one cause. They told us as women, the reason the elders and children stand in front of you is because that's who you look over, that's who you watch after. And they reminded the men, there's a reason you stand surrounding everyone, is because that's your job, is to protect. What the elders also told us there was, it is a time to heal. As Dr. Marsh mentioned, this isn't the first natural disaster issue. We've been facing this type of problems for over 500 years. We have lived through genocide, assimilation. And the elders told us, now's the time to be strong. We are asking you to be warriors, but that does not mean to fight back with violence. It means to restrain yourself, to be stronger than your oppressor, to pray for them, to forgive them. It may not be today right there in that circle, but one day we're going to have to forgive what is going on around us. And that's what made the second trip to Standing Rock very impactful for me. I went up there angry. I went up there broken. I went up there not being able to focus here at school. But every person I encountered, every child, every elder, every two-spirited person, I was reminded that we do have to be strong. We do have to pray. We do have to forgive one day. So that was my experience.
That's awesome. I think the main thing that you were saying that they were, pushing when at the Standing Rock Reservation itself was this idea of forgiveness and this idea of, nonviolence. And so I think that's awesome that you got to experience that firsthand. So I know you mentioned that this movement has brought together both natives and non-natives. And so I kind of wanted to ask you about that. Why do you think this particular movement was successful in bringing together natives and non-natives? And, Professor Marsh, if you'd like to say something about that as well. Do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, this is not the first natural resource issue that we've had. This is not the first pipeline that has crossed in our path, but this is the first pipeline where we've decided that enough is enough. This pipeline has gained global awareness. It has become a movement where it doesn't just impact Native communities. This is going to impact millions of people's drinking water. This is going to impact future generations' drinking water. And I think people are finally recognizing that yes, this does impact me. Even though I am not an Indigenous person, I drink water. And so I am a part of this issue, and I must make a stance against it.